So initial proof is when you first look at the file, you're evaluating to see if the file is usable for a set. Remember, this is between you and the file acquisition editor. You're not trying to change everything, you're not trying to do that, you're just initially looking at something to see what it goes on. Now, what does it consist of? Proofing 20 pages each at the beginning, middle, and end of a book. So let's look here. If we have a whole big long book, like the Book of Martyrs, let's click on that. Look at this. 22 chapters. The chapters are fairly long. You can't proof that whole book line by line, especially not for the initial file compare. So with this one, what you're going to do, you need to proof about 20 pages each. Let's just say a chapter is about 20 pages. So what you're going to do, remember, beginning, middle, end. What you'll do is you'll choose chapter 1. You'll Control A. A bit of lettuce, since I think my computer's working a little too hard. Control C. And then Control V. And this, let's see how many pages that is when it's done. Oh, only 5 pages, so we're going to need more than that, okay? But try to get roughly 20 pages. Copy down both, do the initial file compare, and then from that file compare, what you're entering in is you're actually entering in only from those 60 pages, okay? So if you've got a list that's, you know, way down here, then obviously this particular file is going to be somewhat unusable, okay? One of the things that the proofing editors do is they will list a certain number of errors. If a document is totally full of errors, then they'll list a certain number of errors, and then they'll say this goes on. There are many, many random errors in this book. I just can't even list them all here, okay? So once you get to about 20 columns for one particular book, then just don't worry about listing the errors because we won't be able to use the book, okay? Remember, this is only 60 pages altogether that you're proofing in this initial file compare. 20 pages at the beginning, 20 pages in the middle, 20 pages at the end. Unless, obviously, the book is less than 60 pages, then simply proof the entire book. Do a file compare. Write down the differences, making sure to note the page number, the error, and the proofing comments. So let's say if you just were going through something and you just decided this is so simple, I'm just going to change it. I know what this word is supposed to be. I know what this is supposed to mean. And you're not changing it. Remember, if it's more than 10 times the same error in the same document, that's a pernicious error or a persistent error, and you don't want to change it because the taggers will have to, okay? So just say what you did. This one was in there, I decided to change it. So change to matter, change to complains, change to observes. Left for taggers, persistent error, you know, things like that. And then file acquisition can look through and they can see not only what the errors are and how many of them there are, but they can also tell you what to do with certain ones. So like here, the editor wasn't quite sure. Dismission, is that actually a word? I don't remember that. And she looked it up and she couldn't find it, but maybe it's an archaic word. So she's like, please check this. I don't really know what to do with that. File acquisition is like, just changed it to dismissal. That looks like what needs to happen. Over here, please check arises under Article 35. Here, the file acquisition editor thought that was fine. Yeah, it's archaic, but it's usable, so just don't worry about changing it. Things like that, okay? So you're going to be naming errors, the page numbers, what type of proofing you're doing, if the completeness check has been done, and the name of the file, okay? Then, as you go along, the file acquisition editor will come in here, and they'll note the changes that they want made. And then, together, you'll go back and you'll clean this out after the proofing has been completed, and you'll only leave in here the errors that are for the taggers. That will be error report number 2, which is the subject of another video. So let's go through this. It says here all of the column names, just in case you forget. Fill out the sheet as you proofread. Don't leave it until the end because you will never remember all of the different things. The only time that's acceptable is if you work better, in just a Word document rather than in that spreadsheet, but make sure that you are writing down every error that you see unless you've changed it and you don't feel like the file acquisition editor needs to know it. Remember, this initial file compare one is for them to make the decision whether they can use the document or not. So if you're going through and you're changing a whole bunch of stuff and you're not telling them what you've changed, then they don't see the actual horrible nature of the document, okay? So make sure that what you're doing in this initial file compare is a good sketch for the file acquisition editor, okay? And then you've just got some things to note here. Wrong numbers, wrong format spacing, wrong tenses, unnecessary capitals. You're trying to give them a sketch of what this document actually looks like, okay? Remember, they probably haven't read most of it. Step 3, send a notification of the error report completion to the file acquisition editor. Okay? Once you've sent this notification, they should complete their part of the spreadsheet within 5 business days. That was the file acquisition comments right over here. This will tell you what they want you to do with it. Sometimes they'll say things like, just discard this document, we can't use it. Or, I'll find another one, please hold. File acquisition will sometimes say, change things, specific things in a document, you know, things like that. So you're going to have to read that as soon as they send the notification back, okay? When this is done, you may proceed to the next step of proofing.